Welcome to the 707, a weekly half-hour program produced by KRCB, a service of NorCal Public Media. The 707 features voices and stories from your community, stories that inspire, stories that amplify minority voices, and stories that show how we are connected to each other. Support organizations and local leaders gathered for an immigration update hosted by Cien, Sonoma County on May 15th, fueled by concerns over rapidly changing federal policies. I'm Michelle Marques, and today we will hear from those at the update and learn more about the shifting legal world for immigrants here and around the country.
Birthright citizenship affects many of us in this room. The executive order was such that if neither one of your parents is a citizen or a permanent resident, then you don't have birthright citizenship. And I think the real target are children born to undocumented immigrants.
That's the keynote speaker, University of San Francisco professor Bill Hing, who is the founding director of the Immigration and Deportation Defense Clinic. He's referring to the executive order signed by President Trump on Inauguration Day in January. The issue is now at the nation's highest court after 3 lower courts issued nationwide judgments.
The Supreme Court just heard argument this morning on a very technical issue on the birthright citizenship case. It's not substantively whether or not a Chinese case from 1898 is still the law, Wong Kim Art, that children born here under the jurisdiction of the U.S. are automatic citizens. The case really is not about that, although it may come a little bit in. It's federal civil procedure. It's whether or not a nationwide, in what's called a universal preliminary injunction, can be issued by one judge. Can one federal judge issue an injunction that applies all over the country? And that's the issue before the Supreme Court. And I'm convinced that a federal judge can do that if it's an issue involving the Constitution. It might not apply to issues involving regulations on benefits and that kind of thing, but on a constitutional issue, there's this category for universal preliminary injunctions that if it's an extraordinary issue that it should apply in the Constitution. So what I heard on the oral argument this morning, it seemed to indicate that even Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, although it wasn't the issue, but they kind of assumed that birthright citizenship is the law and that's not going to change. So that's kind of hopeful.
Professor Hing addressed the concerns many have about immigration customs and enforcement, specifically ICE raids happening in the North Bay, and feels that for now at least, it is less of a concern in our area.
The head of ICE for this region has said to local law enforcement that they're not going to go to schools, churches, and hospitals. Has anyone heard of one here? Because I have it on very good authority that And the reason that was given for why is because they're all law enforcement. ICE and police, they need the cooperation of the local police department for certain things that are not immigration related. And that they know that they don't want to burn that bridge in the Bay Area because they think the Bay Area has a certain set of values when it comes to respecting immigrants and obtaining the trust of the community.
The future of DACA, or the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals immigration policy, was on the minds of many in the room. Professor Hing says there are 2 ways that DACA could be terminated.
One is a lawsuit that was brought by Texas, challenge Obama and Biden's authority for DACA. And that federal judge ruled that, maybe we cannot force a president to deport somebody, but a president doesn't have the authority to grant employment authorization. So there's 2 parts to DACA, right? One is promise not to deport, and the second is employment authorization. The Court of Appeals in that area of the country has affirmed that. And so this is headed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has already sent a message in another case saying that it will probably also strike down the employment authorization part. And so that decision would be in about a year. That decision will probably be in June 2026 when employment is struck down for DACA recipients. But there's a second way that DACA can be terminated, and it's by the president himself. In June 2020, when Trump was running for re-election against Joe Biden, the Supreme Court in June 2020 It took almost 3 years to make a decision when Trump tried to terminate DACA the first time. 9 judges in June 2020 said, including Ruth Bader Ginsburg, said the president can terminate DACA. But 5 of them said you have to follow something called the Administrative Procedures Act, and you haven't done that yet. And so Trump knows how to terminate DACA, but he didn't do it in June 2020 because he was in the middle of re-election. Then he lost, right? He knows how to do it. I'm sure that's in their hip pocket.
Professor Hing says there is great courage to be found in each other.
We can probably think back at a moment or a time where somehow our parents or our parent, who we had always looked at as the courageous person, the leader of the house or the neighborhood, they weren't sure about something. And it could have been because of a language barrier or the changing culture. And they looked at us, their kid, and we knew what needed to be done in that particular social instance. And from that moment, my mother or my father looked at me and relied on me and took a little bit of strength from me, I think. Courage isn't about bold, bringing the giant lawsuit, bold, laying in the street and being willing to be run over by an ICE van. I know people who've done that. Courage is about just showing up and being willing to speak up.
4 panelists joined the stage to talk about what their organizations are doing to support the migrant community and adapt to rapidly changing policies. The first speaker was Sunny No, Executive Director of Legal Aid Sonoma County.
We are a civil legal services provider, so we do not provide immigration legal services, but we are very proud to serve the immigrant community on pretty much everything else. Immigrants don't live in a vacuum. I'm the proud daughter also of immigrants. I am also here with birthright citizenship, and immigrants, in addition to being concerned about the fear of deportation, also need a place to live, and they need to be able to take their kids to school, and they need to be able to go to work and put food on the table. And so we work with our friends at Corazon and at La Familia Sana and at La Luz to make sure we're leveraging their relationships in the community to make sure we do what we do well and don't try to do what other people do well.
The next panelist was Jacqueline Brown, Immigration Legal Director for the Sonoma County Secure Families Collaborative and the Director of the Immigration and Deportation Defense Clinic at University of San Francisco.
So the first thing, and I think kind of the most important, is making sure that we're completely up to date on the law and how much changes every day and in all the various areas of immigration law. And the most important thing for me is making sure that anybody that provides legal representation to immigrants actually knows the law and is providing it in an ethical way. A lot of what we haven't seen happen here might be in the pipeline. You could see areas of the country that have to deal with some of these issues before we do because they don't have the support, I would say, in government and in society for humane laws. And so we are in connection with people that do this type of work in other states where we can see these problems coming towards us, and hopefully having strategies to stop and to help people before warrantless arrests, before detention that shouldn't happen because somebody goes to a check-in. So education is number one, and then the second one is really just making sure we're still focusing on our clients and the person in front of us, making sure that we're not getting kind of swept up in the storm and feeling like we still do have power. Every person that we work with deserves that same attention that we would have given them before all of these changes.
Cristal Lopez Pardo, Family Resource Center Manager at Corazon Healdsburg, said they have been disseminating information to community members, including business cards that supply simple instructions about what to do if you encounter immigration officials.
We know that community members are not going to come into our office and self-identify as someone who doesn't have legal documents in the United States, but we know that if we can go out to neighborhoods and distribute those cards, they're going to take some for themselves, they're going to take some for their coworkers, they're going to take some for their neighbors. And so that's the way that we're looking into doing outreach currently. This is a time where folks are in chronic stress. And for the next 3-4 years, we're going to be in a period of chronic stress, and it's affecting both folks who are directly being impacted, but it's also affecting folks who come from products of immigrants who live in mixed status households, who live in mixed status neighborhoods where they're in fear, right? And there's so many issues that are occurring, housing issues, right, and affordability, and you have now mixed families living in one household. And so there are so many things, and so we're trying to make sure that we are reaching out to community members and experts and organizations who can support our work and truly support the work that we believe in.
The final panelist was Renee Saucedo, Program Coordinator for Almas Libres.
Almas Libres is the membership group of immigrant and indigenous women, a program of Raíces Collective. Our mission is to support the empowerment of the immigrant and indigenous communities here in Sonoma County through art and culture, leadership development, and grassroots organizing campaigns. We do not provide services. We admire and respect our sister organizations that do. We are about building immigrant leadership so that they themselves can define their agenda and decide which strategies they wish to use. We are building more leaders because our movement needs to grow in order to exert the level of political power that we need to exert in order to make changes.
You're listening to the 707 on KRCB. We'll be right back.
KRCB is Sonoma County's NPR station, celebrating Sonoma County by featuring the voices, sounds, and culture that make our home unique. From the heartwarming tales of postcards, where residents share their perspectives.
It's been a wonderful day here at the Cien Apple Fair.
To the Arts Brief series, shining a spotlight on the incredible youth in the arts scene.
My full name is June Zelda Grable, and I'm working with a theater for children on a production of Beauty and the Beast.
And Farm Tales, with the latest from local farmers, celebrating happenings on their farms and trends in California agriculture.
Our farm is called Monte Bellaria, which means Mountain of Good Air in Italian. We now have more than 9 acres planted of lavender, about 35,000 plants.
KRCB is a journey into Sonoma County. This is more than radio. This is the voice of your community. Your stories, your station. KRCB 104.9, Sonoma County's NPR station.
Welcome back to the 707 on KRCB. I'm your host, Michelle Marques. In today's episode, you're hearing the concerns aired in an immigration update hosted by Cien on May 15th in Rohnert Park. In a quickly changing legal landscape, the panelists were asked about common misconceptions that they're hearing from the community about immigration processes or rights. Here's Sunny No of Legal Aid of Sonoma County.
I think the biggest misconception is just that there are more pathways to citizenship. And I think it's really important for us as a community to be really honest with the folks in our community who need a safety plan for the next 4 years.
Jacqueline Brown of Sonoma County Secure Families Collaborative spoke about the vulnerability of immigrants.
Common misconceptions is always a concern in the area of immigration law because there are a large number of people that provide immigration legal advice that are not attorneys and take advantage of people's situation and cause a lot of problems. So one of the things that we did, Sonoma Immigrant Services and USF, and organized and had various partners, Corazon and Legal Aid, and we helped to put on several immigration support clinics right after the election up until January 20th we wanted to see if there were people that were available for relief that we could actually help and refer to other organizations. But one of the main concerns was making sure that people understood that they might not be eligible for anything and that they shouldn't be hiring somebody, an immigration consultant or an attorney that's promising that they're eligible for something. They know some loophole or they know some government official and, charging $10,000, which is something I hear of all the time, including up until this week.
Brown spoke about videos on TikTok and other social media platforms showing people getting arrested, which is no longer a misconception, and how that's leading to conversations about the risk inherent in showing up at court or at the DMV. Crystal Lopez Pardo of Corazon Healdsburg said that she's concerned about immigrants and their misconceptions about public benefits.
We're seeing families not want to apply for Medi-Cal and CalFresh benefits if they're eligible and if it's their first time. So we're seeing an increase in food insecurity in homes and obviously income insecurity. And so that's one aspect, right? That really affects the well-being of both the family and the children. The children who do not eat nutritious food are not learning in school. And it's really hard to have conversations with folks and say, well, it's not a public charge. You can apply for these benefits when we know that Trump could change policy at any time, and this could become a public charge in the future. And so really allowing community members to make those informed choices themselves and providing them the resources. The other thing too that we are seeing, and folks are pulling their money away from banks. And so we're seeing individuals closing out bank accounts or not wanting to open up bank accounts because they are preparing and sending money to Mexico to a loved one who can care for their money in case something does happen. And so that, again, right, it shakes up the household, it shakes up the stability of an individual.
Renee Saucedo of Almas Libres revealed a misconception that many in our community may share.
A lot of people in our county, in the immigrant community, believe that we are a sanctuary county already. And that is absolutely false. The county has made symbolic declarations that we receive immigrants, that immigrants are valued, but we do not have an enforceable ordinance or local law like many other jurisdictions in California and across the country that say that county employees, including the sheriff, may not collaborate or offer information to ICE. The second misconception in our community, and this is a huge challenge for us as community organizers, people believe that they have no political power. Oh, no tengo papeles. I don't have my papers, right? Why should I be able to advocate for my rights? And so the beauty of my job is that I get to witness the members of Almas Libres and Raíces Collective enter our organization perhaps with that attitude, but then after they go to their first hearing or press conference or protest, or they've done a media interview sharing their story, and they see concrete results like the Sonoma County Sheriff, in response to the Sanctuary Coalition's organizing work, made a commitment to not offer information to ICE about people who are coming out of county jail unless they've been convicted of serious crimes. It's not the sanctuary that we want, but it's a jump. It was a concrete victory that immigrants themselves fought for.
The panelists were asked what their call to action would be for the public. Here's Sunny No.
We should all be outraged. This is an opportunity for us to not panic and to think really about what's the value that we can add in this time. What's the thing that I do well? There's a lot that's happening at the federal level, and it's easy to get caught up in just wanting to react to it. While we can't do everything federally right now, the more that we can build power locally in solidarity with the folks who are doing the groundwork like Renee and Cristal, the more that we can have an impact, because we can do a lot locally. And we have some of our local leaders here. So talk to them today, know your value, and figure out what you can do in this community.
Jacqueline Brown encourages conversations about the law and rights that we all share.
Educating our kids and their friends and younger people on the rule of law, what that actually means, what the Constitution means, what due process really means, what happens when one person is deprived of due process, what that leads to. These are all conversations that every single person can be having, and in a way that might be less volatile and judgmental perhaps, because I think part of it, the issue is the narrative that's out there that we're fighting against is so powerful, and we need to be equally powerful in terms of our outrage, and we need to be destroying this negativity and this hatred that really feels like a disease.
Cristal Lopez Pardo shared specific appeals to support the immigrant community.
Nothing helps an organization more than money. Donate money, donate your time. Or educators in this room, learn about your students. Stand up for dignity when it's called upon, and seek opportunities for your families and your classrooms and your schools to participate in a way that is safe, in a way where you're not taking their fingerprints and those fingerprints are going then to an agency. For folks in public office, lead with policies that protect our community, that don't punish our community. provide interpretation and childcare for advocacy efforts so that when people are in the room and they're sharing and they're advocating, their child is next room and they know that their child is safe. We need to be addressing these issues as a way of investment. We're investing in our communities because by investing in our communities, they will invest in us. And right now, it seems like we're looking at this as a cost. To our police departments in Sonoma County, identify yourself. Tell us who you are when you're pulling us over. That will create a sense of some sort of safety in knowing that it's a highway patrol officer, it's Healdsburg Police Department, because right now there's a lot of distrust with all forms of enforcement. And lastly, invest in promotoras. Promotoras, almas libres, that kind of work will get the work done in Sonoma County.
And finally, Renee Saucedo urges people to listen to the undocumented themselves.
The main thing is that we all follow the leadership of those who are impacted the most. That we follow the leadership of undocumented migrants themselves, who should be the ones to decide what they want to fight for and how they want to do it. And the rest of us, we are supporters, we are technical assistants, we are the people who cheer them on in awe of their courage.
You can learn more about the Immigrant Update at loscien.org. That's LOSCIEN.org. I'm Michelle Marques. This program is a service of NorCal Public Media. Our president and CEO is Darren Lachelle.